Hello friends, my name is Lilith and this is House of Tales, a series where I will share stories and fairy tales while I draw and paint. Today we are looking at the fox, the red fox specifically. Although I don't consider it as my favorite creature, I have a peculiar and unique relationship with the fox spirit. Foxes in folklore often play the role of the trickster. They appear in stories from many different cultures, often associated with magical powers or human-like abilities, for example, speech. Some honor the wisdom and intellect of the fox spirit, while others fear and associate foxes with disaster and bad omens. Because the fox is so personal to me, I want to share my story with you. When I encountered the fox, it was actually through a book. I came across Mr. Fox by Helen Oyeyemi 3 years ago, which is a series of short stories scattered through experimental metafiction. As a child, I've always loved reading, but somehow lost that as I grew older. I started feeling like I don't have enough time in the day to read. My priorities changed. I still listed reading as a hobby whenever asked to write about myself and felt guilty knowing that I haven't been actually doing it. Picking up Mr. Fox reopened the gate of literature and fairy tales for me, and it's genuinely the main reason I've changed as a person. It was one of those moments in my life where something pivoted and I wasn't sure whether or not it was a good thing at the time. I'm going to share a couple of excerpts that I have annotated from the novel. Now I will speak of another kind of fox. The other fox was a gray fox. This one is red. I'm speaking now of a fox who had been hunted, a beast of the chase who was alive only because of luck and cowering and grim fighting, grim and miserable and low. This fox wasn't innocent. He had turned hutches into bloodbaths purely to divert himself. But he also knew wounds and wariness. This fox had no one. I've said that foxes are solitary, but there's a difference between having no one because you've chosen it and having no one because everyone has been taken away. One afternoon, the fox jumped on some fences and walked straight up to a farmhouse. He didn't want to be a fox anymore. He didn't want to be anything. His head was down, so he didn't see the farm dogs. They bristled and growled, but they didn't attack, not even when the farmer's wife came out and commanded it. The farm dogs knew of sick fox when they saw one. The farmer's wife went inside, but she left the door half open. She was coming back with something. The fox had no plan. Something might happen soon, or it might not. Either way, he was here at the end of his nature. A human form appeared near him. The dogs jumped at the sky and bayed in a way that wolves do sometimes when the full moon draws them. The fox didn't look. This person had been following him for about 4 days. He couldn't remember when she had begun. He had only been badly hurt and she was there. She was just there. She had sticky stuff that he had permitted her to smooth over his wounds. The wounds were just scars now. They healed fast. At night, when he was in too much pain to rest, she counted stars and whispered into the hollow of the tree he lay in, telling him how many she could see until he fell asleep. There was no reason for her to do such things. He didn't know what this person wanted from him, and he hadn't come across anything like her before. So she probably didn't exist. The fox ignored her as best he could. Now she crouched down beside him and she touched him. She rubbed his neck. She spoke into one of his ears and he understood. Whenever she spoke, he understood. Her voice had all sorts of sounds in it. The flow of water against rock, an acorn shaken in its shell, a bird asking for morning. Her voice wasn't loud, but he heard it throughout his body. Listen, that woman is looking for a gun. She's found the gun. Quickly, why did you come here? It's true then, Fox, that you want to die. He couldn't tell her the truth. He lacked the language. She sighed. Very well, it is your right. Goodbye. She stroked his back. She strolled away. The sound of the shotgun shattered the air and sent him after her, as hard and as fast as he could go. They both ran, but he overtook her. Live, she laughed breathlessly. Live, live, live. He began to pay attention to her. He had never been so close to one of his hunters, had never been this close to harm. She told him that she had looked after him because of the white hairs on his forehead that grew into the shape of a star. Sometimes you see that someone is marked and you're helpless after that. You love. She wanted to tell him that, but she decided it was better not to. He hadn't known that there were such hairs on his forehead, or that such a thing could be of significance. She sat and he lay near her, and a little time passed, quiet and bright. They parted outside her hut. It was a ramshackle thing beside a stream. It had a heavily dented tin roof, and its windows were coated with dust. All in all, it looked cross, as if it had plenty of things to say in its inhabitant about being left alone for too long. "Come inside," the woman said to the fox. The fox demurred. Sadly, the woman watched him go his own way again. Days went by. The woman made her peace with her hut. She gave it a thorough sweeping, built herself a new roof, washed the windows, plaited rugs. The woman picked herbs and grasses and boiled and bottled various concoctions. Sick people and their relatives sought her out in the forest. She took their money and they took her bottles away and were cured. "Where have you been?" she was asked, again and again. "Weeks we've been looking for you." And she answered, "I fell in love." "Congratulations! Where is he?" "I don't know. I don't know if I'll see him again." And her pupils grew vast as she spoke, as if her eyelids had opened while she was still in the first stage of sleeping. Women like her are very serious once they have chosen. To everyone who saw her, she said, "If you see him, tell me. He wears a white star on his forehead." She didn't tell anyone that he was a fox. One of the village women went into labor, and our woman served as midwife. The days were full of screaming, and the nights were hoarse, and there were 3 of each until the baby was born. This happened in summer. When our woman came home, she jumped into the stream and washed. The blood and sweat whirled away, and afterwards she sat outside until the sun dried her. She watched lizards and felt humming on her skin. Tiny creatures bit her. They were alive and they wanted her to know. Her pulse slowed to its slowest ebb, then sped up again, flashed through her wrist in her head. She was happy and unhappy. The fox had forgotten you, she told herself. Yet all around her she saw white stars. Because of a fox? Because of him. The woman went into her hut and found clothes to wear and found that she had been robbed. Bottles and picture frames were broken. Her tables and chairs were overturned. Her papers had been rifled through. Matches were scattered on the ground. The woman searched the hut for missing things. She wasn't aware of all her possessions, so really she was just looking for a gap. She found it on her bookshelf. The thief had taken a dictionary, nothing else. She stood, looking at the gap and thinking. Then thinking turned into wonder, and she smiled into her hand. Now, think of a fox in his den, wrapped around a book. His front paws were resting on the pages, and his eyes were very close to the text. These shapes, they're useless. They frustrate him. The more he looks at them, the more they mock him. He nudges the book into a sack and drags the sack along by its drawstring through the forest. In the bushes by the village nursery, he listens to children saying their ABCs. He can see the blackboard. The teacher taps it with a ruler, going from letter to letter. His mind wanders. He bites his paw. Look and listen. His mind wanders again. He nips at his paw again, savagely this time. And again, until his paw is bloody and he is listening. First light finds the fox at his stolen book. No one else knows. No one sees what he's doing. But words are coming. The fox doesn't hunt anymore. He doesn't hunt. He eats easy meat, forest rats. He stays near his den or he goes to the nursery school. He listens carefully. He connects pictures with words. He eavesdrops. He steals newspapers. He stumbles in his understanding and snarls and shreds the newspaper into pieces. But he will know this language. He must have this language. Because of a woman. Because of her. The day came when the fox had words. Only a few, but enough to begin to talk to her. He went to the woman's hut. Her hair was gray, and there were lines on her face, but otherwise she was the same. She had not been young when they met, and 2 years had tipped the balance. He wasn't young himself. The woman smiled and touched his forehead. So it was still there, the shape that she liked. Good. Come inside, the woman said, in a way that he heard from head to toe. One day he would ask her how she could do that. The fox entered the hut. I associate the fox with the Fool, card 0 of the Major Arcana and Tarot. You might remember me telling you about my first tattoo, and how I identify with the Fool card as a naive, hopeful, and reckless soul who was trying to figure out her place in the world. The fox became my guide. It doesn't tell me where we are going, and it doesn't ask me to follow. It is fickle, comes and goes as it pleases, and the energy is sudden. I always feel the fox strongest in the fall. I read somewhere that in autumn, foxes tend to eat a lot of fruit and grass as they are omnivores, which is why I drew a ring of fruit around this fox. Maybe it's because I sleep with a fox plushie every night, but it lingers in my dreams and my subconscious as well. I don't know what it was that drew me towards it, for it is unreliable and at times untrustworthy, but I fully believe it has no ill intentions. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed a part of Helen's story, and I highly recommend her book, Mr. Fox. Have a wonderful day or night, and I will talk to you soon.